Hi, I'm Ashley Stoddard, and I am Color Supervisor on Invincible Seasons 2 and 3.
Hi, I'm Victoria Thornberry, and I'm a color designer on Invincible Season 2.
So color design is the craft that takes care of coloring anything that is animated on screen. So characters, props, effects. So anything that is animated on screen has to go through color in order to be colored to fit into the background, into the lighting of the background.
We're going for vibes too, so depending on what's happening, what's the vibe?
Or if there's a super special color palette call out, that needs to go through the color team to make those colors happen.
Colors make you feel a certain way, so we get to lean into that a lot, and that's super fun about the job.
There's certainly a art to being efficient with our production time, but also calling out spots in the story that we think could be emphasized with really strong color palettes.
Are they having dinner? Is it a romantic scene? Should the lighting be nice and soft, or is it something bad's gonna happen? How are we gonna ship that? What time of day is something gonna be? All of that we get to kind of decide in color, which is so fun and exciting. Maybe the script calls out day, but we want to make it sunset because it helps play up the story a little bit more. The most challenging character I find coloring is usually Adam Eve and her effects and her constructs, because some of them are transparent, some of them are opaque, some of them cast light. So we're trying to figure out how the characters will look when she's protecting them in a barrier or behind a wall that she's created. That sometimes is a challenge. And I'm thinking of episode, I think it's 206, when they go to Mars. That was a whole nother thing too. How do we make this look good? They're pink and kind of grayish green, but then her stuff is pink.
That was a learning experience, because when I call a palette, which a palette designates which assets should be colored differently, I would be calling different palettes for when they were inside the pink bubble, when they were inside Eve's force field. I didn't need to do all that. It was too complicated. I learned efficiency.
We have to really problem solve this and make sure her constructs can stand apart from, they're like waves of sequids. A lot of problem solving and pushing and pulling of colors so that it looks good.
It came out good, and I am pleased. The other palette that I'd call out that Victoria, you also did, was at the end of the season in the finale.
And I love Amber, and I want to be with her, but it feels like the universe is conspiring against us.
It doesn't matter if you're a superhero or an ordinary Joe. Relationships aren't easy.
I like to explain to people what a color script is kind of like the conceptual stage. It's sort of like a rough thumbnail of color.
Color scripts change depending on what show you're on. The fact that we even could kind of squeak in having color scripts on this show was kind of rare. It's rare to have the time to do color scripting in a serial show.
And you get to kind of figure out composition a little bit if you have storyboards in hand, but it's a fun conceptual phase.
But it was really helpful for the background team to have a space to experiment with what kind of color was going to be in these locations. There's not a lot of time to iterate and do concepting, basically. So color scripts are a fast way to iterate on what that color is going to be. Other shows I know use color scripts to help communicate to our overseas partners what direction the lighting's coming from, and to help the color designers with establishing the palettes and making sure that the characters are properly integrated into the background but still visible and popping out and able to be seen.
Little was known about the Space Rider. He was a mystery, the stuff of legends. Stories about him
stretched across the 12 galaxies, but in all of them, one detail remained constant: the Infinity Ray.
So in Invincible, we have, an entire universe and multi-dimensional universes in which they travel to and fight people in. They'll always come back to the Armageddon Room in the GDA, the Grayson House, and the Guardians of the Globe headquarters. The color space in those three locations had to be figured out early on. If they're going somewhere that gives us the opportunity to really push the color, that's super fun to be able to do. But sometimes it can be a lot of just in the city. There were episodes where I tried to push the color and lighting to help support the story if we had the resources to do so, if we had the time to do so. I think some of those are certainly coming up in later episodes, which I'm very excited to see.
when it comes to updating the characters, we can't deviate too much from like what Sean and Dan and Robert and Corey want to see, because it is highly inspired by the comics.
We did tweak a little bit between, season 1 and season 2 in such a way to make the characters easier to palette.
I might be able to like tweak a red an Omni-Man's costume if it helps me fit it into a palette better, or darken his hair or lighten his hair just to like stand out against the sky. If he's flying through a nighttime scene and the sky is the same color as his hair.
We tweaked a little bit of Invincible's blues, a little bit on his yellows, so that the colors underlying all of the lighting that we were going to put on top would actually work better.
But for the most part, I do have to be a little restrictive since this is a superhero show and these costumes are iconic. I think the most fun character I get to sort of tweak and play with is Oliver, because he's purple, and as he gets older, he's playing around with his different costumes, and he's aging quickly, and so there's some different looks that we get to see with him, which will be fun.
As for color for like backgrounds and just overall color direction and color styling, that was definitely informed by the comics, but not one-to-one, because they're different mediums, right? Like the colors in the comics were very restricted by the fact that they are comics, and like there's a certain production schedule that has to be met, and there's a certain process they're following, and like I did take inspiration from like the idea of comic books when approaching how we colored our backgrounds and like the overall kind of color blocking in the background, so keeping the local color pretty bright and intelligible. Like our show is not light forward, if that makes sense. Like the color of the light does not overpower the local color, so in that way it keeps the vibe of just comic books. We worked hard to make all of the blood consistent, and by one color I mean that oh shit, no, there's two.
I was gonna say there's so many you can't even count, because if you think about all the palettes this blood goes into,
right,
the blood's gonna look different. On Thraxa, it's gonna look different.
But we keep it the same, like we start with the same blood color, right? The default blood color across all of the
minus Rhiannon.
minus the Rhiannon. Oh my god, Rhiannon, we're a problem.
There's blood, there's new blood, there's fresh blood, there's scabby blood.
There's one blood. I reacted because like we have to track so much blood that we, like, production and I eventually got to the point where we were like, okay, this is the one blood design that we're using as reference, and that is it. We're not paletting 5 different iterations of blood effects. We're just doing this one, and we're gonna tell our partners to reference just that blood effect. We haven't even gotten into like brains and intestines and bones. Bones are not white per request of Mr. Corey. Yeah. The bones are not white. The bones must be pink. Don't do white bones.
There is a path to redemption. Rejoin your people, Nolan. Let this not be your legacy.
Some of the color spaces that I'm excited to see show up in the second half of season 2 is definitely a certain space prison that Maribel Pozos worked on. It looks fantastic. When Space Racer shows up, we pulled a lot of inspiration from like 70s sci-fi pulp covers for that color space, and again that was Nick Nazzaro helping me out with that. Again, the finale, the final episode where Victoria and I worked together on that.
The scene in particular that you're talking about, Ashley, is probably one of my favorite ones that I painted, and I just like darker color palettes and softer lighting. Anything nighttime is super fun.
It's a subtle palette, and I don't think people will... It's not going to punch them super hard, but it is appropriate to like what's happening in the story. And I'm proud of it. I think it worked well, and it's a quiet moment in between a lot of action, and I think it really supports the story beat.
Invincible!
What the hell is going on?
I don't know. I came here looking for you, and then suddenly this douchebag attacked me. You have those on Earth, right? Douchebags?
Alan's my friend. He's a good guy.
Oh, my thing only works between me and someone else, not between 2 other someone else's. It's a design flaw. I'm told there's an update coming.
peer-to-peer education, like learning from your coworkers, learning from your teammates, is probably both the most important and coolest thing that we have here in animation. Like, we're all artists and we just want to get good, and so like every time there's somebody who's like on the team who's like, oh man, you paint so well, show me how. Sometimes that can feel a little awkward. Honestly, as soon as I got promoted to color supervisor, I was like, I need help. I don't know things, because this was my first like supervision job in animation. I'd had supervision jobs elsewhere in games, but like this was my first in animation, and to suddenly have this responsibility on a show with as much reach as Invincible was absolutely terrifying. So I immediately was like, okay, how can I learn from my team who knows a lot? So that became a really great corner of our culture on the team, which I'm really grateful that everybody bought in, that everybody wanted to share and wanted to participate and wanted to hang out with each other. Like, I think we really made friends.
That just makes it so much more fun to come to work every day when you kind of know your coworkers and they're interested in you and what you do, and they're not just kind of like in their own bubble. Like, storyboard artists are excited about color design and have such a bigger respect for what we do in color versus just like not really knowing what it goes into it, and they're just kind of like, oh, your job's just easy, you just put color on it. It's like, no, they're like, wow, I did not know how much you guys do. Like, mad props to you guys.
I'll just put Victoria on the spot and say she was the one who modeled this behavior for me when I first got into the industry. So
I really was always passionate in like sharing with interns or whoever wanted to learn. So I love teaching because I just think it's really cool. It's a really fun job. It's very rewarding. And on Invincible, while working on the show, I feel like it's just nice to share little tips and tricks that I've picked up along the way. I've learned things from Ashley that she just does things a little differently, and I might try it and be like, oh, I kind of like this, and maybe I'll pick up some things from the rest of my team and kind of just learn different skills and share, and always just showing ways to do things more efficiently, because in color design, we have a massive amount of assets that we have to color every week. So, background painter might have to handle a couple locations a week. We're handling like up to 100, could be 150 designs in one episode that we have to handle, and that's different palettes too. So the more organized we can be while we work, the more efficient we can be, the better it's going to be, and the less stressful it's going to be. So I definitely think it's good, and I love the environment on our show. We've been able to just foster that. Everyone's very open to sharing, and no one's like, I do it better and it's my way. Everyone's really cool about receiving and sharing information. I think it's really neat that people you wouldn't even expect would watch this show, like coming up to me or reaching out, messaging me and being like, I can't believe you work on this show. I love this show. This is awesome. I'm like, awesome. Great. That's so nice to hear that you're a fan.
I think it's cool to see how important this story can be to people.
And we're pouring our blood, sweat, and tears into it.
And it's an honor to bring it to the screen.